Google and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Aves' record. 202 and 36, I think, some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands, and the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
So you're a philosopher?
Yes.
This is Thoughts and Moments. Hey, it's your boy Silly Thoughts, the Prince of Petty.
And I'm Joy, also known as Joy Ride. I provide the moments to make your life better.
We're here weekly to provide the latest news, trending topics, and edutainment.
We will engage, entertain, and inform, but we keep it real and we keep it fun.
So whether you're riding in these streets or podcast surfing with your peeps, this is a show you don't want to miss.
Every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And guess what? It's 5 p.m., so let's go.
Hey, here's your boy Silly Thoughts, and you are watching Thoughts and Moments Radio right here on the Jericho Broadcast Network. I see my girl Joy Ride is in the building, and we've got a special guest with us. He is not new to the show, but he has been with us before, but only in voice. That's back when we were on that other spot that I'm not going to give free advertising to. But we were Chris Taliaferro is in there. I hope I said that right, Chris. Hey, there we go. I was practicing. So, welcome. Glad to see your face now.
It's a nice day. I'm ready for TV. I'm a good looking. I just take my lip, like. No.
After I ripped one of your pictures off your Facebook page. See, that's why you got to be careful with social.
You picked such a good one.
See, so, note to everyone out here. So here's Joy's little coaching moment. Make sure everything on your social media is camera ready. Make sure that anybody that snatches any picture off your Facebook page is one that you like, because the next thing you know, you get called out, and you might even be elected, president of a company, and you don't want the picture to be.
Yes. They will find the worst photo of you and put that as your picture.
So what you're saying is I should delete all my nudes.
Well, I think Facebook has a mode that they eliminate those.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, it's just titties. It's just my titties, but like.
Okay.
Sir. Don't nobody want that.
Okay. No, you know what? You're right.
That is not a professional headshot. Well, it depends on the profession, but generally speaking, that is not a professional headshot. Okay.
If I submit my resume to OnlyFans, I think that would work.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's the beauty of OnlyFans, is it makes you an entrepreneur. You don't need a resume. You just need to click some things, the cash app.
And then there's
I just like to say the word resume because it makes it sound smart.
You're so stupid.
It is. We speak French. We say resume and parlez-vous and all kind of stuff like that. So we've got a great show tonight. I think we were off last week, I believe. We took the week off because of all the election stuff we were doing. We did our live election night coverage. Joy was doing our show, and then she had to run and go do the Steel Sharper Steel election night coverage. So we both kind of got worn out and said, you know what, let's take Thursday off. So now that we're in, almost 2 weeks later, a week and a half later, we're going to call the show The Aftermath, because now there's still some remnants of what happened last week. Last Tuesday, we're still lingering on because the ego in the White House cannot let go and cannot fully process the fact that he was voted out of the White House. He thought in his mind he was doing such a great job, and he inherited a mess, and all the other things he was saying prior to that, he was just going to win. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on tonight. He did some things in anticipation of winning,
right?
That now are going to come back to bite him. And what I've been pushing on social media is that everybody's talking about how he cut taxes. No, he did not. Mm-hmm. He deferred the tax raises until 2021 when he expected to be reelected, and then it didn't matter because he was already in office, which is what he was going to do. And so now every year, starting next year, your taxes are going to go up every single year until 2027, unless Joe Biden decides to scrap that plan and put another one in place.
And I want you to think about that plan of action. That is at the core of indentured servitude. Here, you need some stuff. I'm gonna loan you, I'm gonna give you all this stuff on consignment, and you pay me when you can. And then I'm only gonna pay you 10 cents an hour. Everything you got is $35. It's gonna take you 350 hours to pay it back, but you're gonna need some more stuff next week. And so you're never gonna catch up. And the next thing you know what? You're never gonna catch up. Well, you let me go and get this land up off you, since you can't pay your bills, because all of y'all are deadbeats, and this is how it started. And we don't see it because it's all couched in law and policy and executive orders and presidency, et cetera. But it's the same thing. Let me put you in debt with you not paying attention to what I'm doing.
He's a Renaissance of presidents, basically. It sounds good when you sign the dotted line, but guess what? When you get done with all the payments, you're like, wait a minute, I paid $8,000 for this laptop? Like, how'd that work?
I've been paying out of it for 25 years.
I think I got a Commodore 64. I just finished paying off.
Right? I just paid off my Nintendo 64. I'm so excited. It's mine now.
Wait, we got a Commodore 64 reference and a Nintendo 64 reference.
We don't barrel today.
Right. Commodore, what was the next one? VIC 20 or whatever. That was fancy. I didn't get that. I had a 64.
How old is Lionel Richie? Is he 64 years old? Because he would be a Commodore 64.
You know what? I'm so that was.
I'm gonna do a check on that. I'm gonna do a check right now. If he's 64, I'm gonna log off from the show. I'm just gonna log off.
Please look. I need to know. I want to say he's
okay. Here we go. Drum roll. He's 71.
Ooh. Okay. He's older than hard. Looks good. Looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
Black girlfriend. So I
guess that's what happens when you dance on the ceiling. You get
Hello.
You get that blood.
Hell
to the face.
Yeah, the face still out, drinking water.
There's definitely a floor to the age limit of people that should be watching this show, because if you are younger than a certain age, you're gonna miss all of these references.
Right. If you think that Snoop Dogg wrote Lottie Dottie, this ain't the show.
That should be a whole show.
Wrote Before I Let Go. This ain't the show for you.
I was literally the other night. I was bringing my son home from his workout, and I said, "Have you heard of Public Enemy?" I was talking about it, and he was just like, he had no idea what I was talking about. So I pulled out and Takes a Nation of Millions, and I started playing it. But what I did like is that he recognized Flavor Flav because he has found a way to make himself relevant still. Sure. And then he recognized Chuck D's voice. He didn't know who it was, but he said, "Isn't that the guy from Welcome to the Terror Dome?" And I was like, "You got it."
There you go.
You succeeded as a parent.
You got to right.
He's been here because I played in the car. How old is he?
Yeah.
13. He's 13. So
okay, my son's 13 too. Look at that.
His rap references are so off from mine. We don't even connect on that, because it's like, and he recognizes that some of the things that he likes are way different than some of the stuff that I like, and he kind of laughs at. But he recognizes a lot of songs because he plays the Sony PlayStation, and the NBA, they use a lot of old school rap, so that does keep him. Oh, he goes, "I think I've heard that on NBA Live," so that kind of keeps him. But yeah, in my car, we play my music. That's how. That's how it is.
Oh yeah, no. I'm my son has heard way too much Steely Dan. I like Dan. I don't know what to tell you. No, the song Peg. That's my jam.
Peg is a jam now. Peg is a jam. That is the jam. Okay. He's got. Okay. All right. Seriousness.
Yes.
All right. So, we knew on election night it was going to be a tight race. We didn't expect it to, like, we hoped it wasn't going to be tight. We hoped that more than 75 million plus people would have sense. But, you know, Trump has been banging that drum for 3.5 years. He had a 3.5 year head start, or 2.5 year head start on his reelection campaign. And he's been campaigning for reelection since he got elected, with all these rallies, these nonsensical rallies he's been having. So it was tighter than we thought, but the one thing that Trump was right about is he knew he was going to lose the mail-in ballots. And so that's why he started that process of trying to devalue mail-in ballots very, very early, because statistically speaking, the Democrats use mail-in ballots more because a lot of people that vote Democratic are working. They can't take off on election day. There's all these other factors that come in. Those are just a few of them.
Yeah.
And COVID, because of the people that are going to be voting Democratic are more sensitive to what's going on with COVID, they're not going to put themselves in harm's way unnecessarily when they can vote by mail instead of going into the actual voting precinct. And so he knew, and his advisors knew, that there was going to be a flood of mail-in votes, and most of those votes were going to be for Joe Biden. That's why he worked so hard in order to try to devalue and to create some fraudulent thoughts around the mail-in ballots, when there's never been and there's no inkling of fraud associated with mail-in ballots.
What's funny?
Here's one question. Here's one question I had, and it's as follows. So again, just as you said, he knew from the start that mail-in ballots were going to lean democratically. And that's kind of a fact of life. It's just how it is, right?
Right.
When you look at the numbers of the turnout of his voters, it's not only likely, but it's likely and probable that the election would have been even closer, and he may have even won if he had encouraged his voters to vote by mail rather than poo-pooing the process. See, here's the thing. You were going to have those Democratic vote by mails regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So without them on his side, the Democrats won. But what if he was like, if you vote by mail, it's the best thing. It's going to be great. Vote by mail is super safe, super wonderful. If he said that, guess what? Everybody, those boxes would have been filled with racist ballots.
Okay, so you know what? You bring up a good point, and I got two things. One is about mail-in voting, and the other is about wearing masks. So first and foremost, the wearing of a mask and the protection of yourself and others from COVID did not have to be political. But because he's such a narcissist, he came out, he wanted to be anti anything anybody else was doing. And the minute somebody questioned his authority or questioned his knowledge base on a disease that nobody knew, it was brand new. Nobody knew anything. Oh, I know more about communicable diseases than anybody. And so he's like, masks are stupid.
We're talking about coronavirus, not herpes.
Insanity.
Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so it didn't have to be political. It could have just been, hey, everybody, it'd be nice if you wear a mask. I've done enough training. I've done stuff but with a Korean audience, with an Indian audience, with a Japanese audience, even with an audience from the UK and from the European Union as a whole. And to a person, they said we didn't look at it as taking away our freedom. We looked at it as taking a moment to protect each other. And that never came from our government. You should protect each other from this virus. You know, just like any other like alien movie. Think about Independence Day. You still had racism and classism, but when the aliens came, they banded together and defeated the aliens. And so this time the aliens came, and half of us were like, yo, the aliens are coming, we need to do something. The other half's like, you can't tell me not to get on this ship. It's my right. Like, really, this is what we're doing. But if you do remember, in Independence Day, it was a gang of folks on a rooftop waiting for the aliens to come. They was the first ones to go. So maybe that is just what happens. But it did, again, it didn't have to be political. But because of that, you did have this influx of, or this tsunami, if you will, of people voting by mail-in ballot or voting early, because I voted early as early as I could. I was like, I ain't about to be in that line on election day. But so people who work shifts, people who can't get off, people who can't on a Tuesday, they voted early as well, and a lot of them voted by mail, and not to mention the military ballots coming in by mail. Now, here's another thing. Perfect storm of everything. There were a lot of things that had to happen over this year for him to lose this election, because he was headed for another re-election. It was gonna happen. But then you have the civil unrest of the summer, and you had a lot of people who had been ignoring systemic racism and the issues with police brutality for decades, who all of a sudden were like, wait, what? How did this happen? Because they took their eye off the ball. They're like, oh, we signed the equal rights thing back in 1964. Racism is over. Black president. Racism is over. And then you see this, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we're still doing this. I've seen signs like 64-year-old woman saying, I can't believe we're still protesting about this same shit. So it woke up a lot of people to, well, maybe just this once, I shouldn't vote party line. I should maybe not vote for that guy because I'm hearing that, you know, he's supporting a bunch of nonsense. And that helped too. And then you had COVID. Everybody, his dismissal of it, oh, it's ridiculous, you're wearing a mask, and then he got it and all this other kind of stuff. Everybody in the United States, for the most part, knows somebody who either has it or have died from it. And
my boss died. My boss died. Straight up.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
What
it's
happened?
right here. You know? But
well, you had over, I mean, you
no,
figure
sorry.
if you operate from the 6 degrees of separation principle, over 250,000 people have died from this particular disease.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you reduce that just to, you think that African Americans, Black Americans are 2.5 to 3 times more likely to die from infection, then that really reduces, when you're talking about 13 to 14% of the population, that reduces that 6 degrees down to about 3 or 4.
It's always been 3 for us. And
always
all
3
of us know somebody that has either had it or had somebody die from it. Like
right.
I know somebody whose mother, whose uncle, whose father, sister, or somebody has passed away, not just contracted it. You know,
right.
As far as contracting, it's people in my building that have contracted it, and I live in Midtown. You know,
well, you got 10 million people, over 10 million people that have contracted it, and so just by, you know, and major cities tend to be your hotter spots because they're more densely populated, and so therefore, if you live in a major city like Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago just issued an ordinance to shut down the whole city. New York. So you're talking about those major cities. DC, they had over 200 people just die yesterday. So it's like it's not going away. And you're absolutely right, Joey. The way he handled it or mishandled it, I think that's more accurate. The way he mishandled COVID even got people that would have supported him in any other instance said, you know what, he put a lot of people's lives in jeopardy. And what they did, and I think the interesting phenomenon in this particular election was the Republicans maintained, like people were, like I think some Republicans were literally putting Biden and then voting Republicans down the rest of the ticket because they won, and they stayed in office, the incumbents won, they won some gubernatorial seats. So they had a good election other than their presidency. And you know what? I think they're okay with that.
I think
okay with it.
I think the one thing that people fail to realize is how difficult it is to unseat a sitting president. The last time it happened, remember, it was Bill Clinton beating George H.W. Bush, but what was the X factor there? Ross Perot. Perot siphoned a lot of votes off of, you know, from people who
the strongest independent we've ever seen in this lifetime.
And Bill Clinton had that cool factor with the black vote. Could he play saxophone?
Right.
Yeah. Bill could get it back in the 90s, you know.
Bill was cool, right?
Let's go. But it's just but again, I just think that, you know, it speaks to exactly how badly Donald Trump screwed this thing up. That he had a fervent base, right, that will just follow him off a cliff like lemmings, right, like to the ends of the earth, no matter what. He's a sitting president. And earlier, Ellis, you said it was close. Oh, was it? Is this a close election? I mean.
Yes, it was. Okay, so from a percentage standpoint, you know, 5 million votes out of 100 million is a 5% margin. It's, you know, so yeah, I can understand why they were wanting recounts in certain places. I can understand.
He's only winning by like 50,000 in some areas, like Georgia. He's only got what, 46,000 here or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And Pennsylvania, which is a keen battleground state, like that lead is widening, but it's because of the mail-in ballots that they're counting, and that's why the Republicans are up in arms. They're up in arms about that. Nevada was close. Arizona was close. Arizona, their people are saying the reason why Biden pulled Arizona is because how the president talked about McCain. And see, so and when you're talking about, when you're splitting hairs that closely on making a decision, well, he talked about John McCain, so I'm gonna vote for Biden. That means you agreed with him pretty much and just didn't like the way he acted on that one issue. That's ridiculous. Even if it's coronavirus, it's like there was more issues that you should have not voted for him just on the fact that he's an ass. But if that was okay, then you say, well, he handled coronavirus wrong. I think Biden could do a better job. That's how close it was.
See, the only reason that I kind of I'm not exactly so bullish on it being close is when you look at the margins of victory and loss in the traditionally red and blue states, right? So you look at a state like Texas, and you look at the gains that Joe Biden made in a state like Texas. Now, people were talking about flipping it blue. I never believed that. Like, I didn't.
I'm from Texas.
No.
But when you look at the percentages, you say, wow, there were way more people in Texas that wanted this to happen than you would think. And you can go around, you know, there's a few.
North Carolina was another one. North Carolina was purple.
You know what I mean? There were a few. But if you look through some of those red states and you look at the numbers, especially comparing them to Hillary Clinton in 2016 and even Obama in 2012 and 08, I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Joe Biden was the strongest candidate. So for him to be able to kind of close that gap a little bit in, you know, again, traditionally red states, it makes me, I see what you guys are saying in terms of it being close, right? But, you know, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there are way more people in this country that think Donald Trump is a complete idiot than the other way around.
And I agree with that point. And I think there's people that voted for him that still think he's a complete idiot.
Oh, yeah.
They were voting for just conservative lines and there was a little spite in there. There's all that stuff that get mixed in.
And there's a huge block. There's a huge block of single issue voters. The one that I like to point out is anti-abortion voters. That's the one thing that they focus on. And I've seen in writing, and I've spoken to personally. And actually, it was an interesting conversation because we talked about, right to life and women's right to choose, et cetera, and her reasoning for always voting Republican is because in her lifetime, the Republicans have been anti-abortion. And she admitted, I know there's a lot of other stuff, but this is the only thing that I really care about. It's the only thing I pay attention to. And yeah, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for him. And she called me out. She said, didn't you say you were going to hold your nose and vote for Joe Biden? I was like, shit, I did. I did say that. Because I know everything that Biden is doing. But then abortion is not my issue.
Listen, Trump could drown a puppy.
I had a hysterectomy years ago.
He could drown a puppy on Twitter, right?
Think about,
and as long as he's appointing Supreme Court justices, guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what? People are going to watch him drown that puppy and say the puppy probably deserved it.
I will say this.
Just so I could throw down the hat in a moment of like fervent anger at some point, just for the record.
You threw down the hat on talking about drowning a puppy, so it was kind of
he's crazy.
Kind of love that.
Put the hat back on so you can take it off again later, because that was funny. But
I will say this.
You know,
I will say this.
You make a good point. Like people are gonna ride with him regardless.
They were riding with him. And
this was very much a gang war. Like it was Crips and Bloods, red and blue, all the way through. You know, who's you riding with? And you ride or die. It's exactly, literally, if you're not wearing a mask at his rallies, it really was ride or die. Hypothermia, all kind of nonsense going on at his rallies.
Herman Cain.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody check on Ben Carson? How's he doing? Anybody know?
I don't know. I haven't seen him since he caught it. Who's to say?
Hey.
You would think he would know better being a doctor, but I don't know. I mean, you would think, but
you know what? You make a good point. But I mean, I know enough.
You should read Gifted Hands. You should read his book, his first book, Gifted Hands. Okay,
so Gifted Hands, he didn't watch.
I had to rethink it, right? Because my mother made me read it when I was a child to kind of give an inspirational book, and it could be, and it was at that point for me. But now you look back on it, he was mistreated when he grew up in the Black neighborhoods because of at first, remember, they thought he wasn't smart, and so they mistreated him because he was the dumb kid. And then when he realized he was smart, he was probably pushed out, because we have this thing in our community about being smart means you're acting white. So think about his experience with Black people during his formative years weren't the greatest. Then he says, I'm a Republican. He starts saying all these things and doing all these things that Republicans, conservatives want to hear. He becomes very much accepted by them. And so therefore, and this is an acceptance that he didn't get from his own people during that most impressionable time. So that memory is lasting with him throughout his life. And so I'm not giving him a pass whatsoever. What I'm saying is that we have to kind of reframe how we look at the way he's behaving today based on his own words and how he grew up.
That is a very valid point. I want to have breaking news. Breaking news. The Georgia Secretary of State is now in quarantine after coronavirus exposure as the vote recount / audit was beginning.
Wow.
No, I like that dude. I like that dude. He was talking trash. He was talking trash to Kelly Loeffler and what's the other boy's name?
Right. I keep telling y'all this virus don't give a damn. Every day the virus is like, I'm still here. The virus like, still, I'm here. I'm still here.
I keep seeing people bored and like they're like, I just want to get out of the house and I just want to do this. Listen, man, we gotta just kind of lock down and kind of keep it simple. Listen, I love going out. I love having people over and throwing parties and all this stuff, but it's real out here. And listen, that vaccine that Pfizer just announced, that's overnight or at least 90% effective. We're not going to see that anytime soon. And I think the danger of the fact that they announced it, I understand why you would announce it, but I think the danger is a lot of people are going to hear that and go, "Oh, there's a vaccine, no problem. I'm going to go lick my girlfriend's neck. It's fine."
I could talk about that vaccine. Joy, go ahead, but I'll give some people some real facts about that vaccine.
No, go ahead. I want to come after that.
Okay, so here are the real facts about that. Okay, so Pfizer comes out with this announcement. People hear vaccine 90% effective. That's how we digest information in small chunks. Those are the 2 small chunks that people got out of that. But again, when you hear something like that, you got to think it all the way through. Their vaccine has 2 doses that have to be taken. You have to take the first one, and then you have to wait 28 days, and you take the second dose. They don't have any idea of how long that vaccination is going to last because they haven't had time to see how long it's lasting. So is it going to be an annual event? Do you have to get that 2-shot dosage every 6 months, every 3 months? How often do you have to be vaccinated? People don't talk about that. Another thing that they don't talk about is that vaccine has to be kept at 30 degrees below zero. It has to be super frozen. So when you start talking about, and then as soon as you open the crate, you've got 10 days to use it or it's done. You got to throw that batch out. You can't reuse it. You can't refreeze it. So once it's out, you got to administer it in a very short window of time. You got about 10 days. So then you start thinking about, well, how are we going to get this to rural areas that might not have the capability to, and the storage facilities to keep that much medicine, that much vaccine, that cold, right? So you got to have the refrigeration capabilities to be able to keep that 30 degrees below. So like any other medication you might have in your office, can't be stored with this particular medication. You got to have a separate storage unit for this vaccine. You start thinking about urban areas. How are they going to get it to urban areas? So there's a lot of just problems associated with this. They wanted to be first to market. They were first to market. Everybody knows Pfizer and everything like that. When you really start thinking it through, and this is what people have to realize when you're on your own job, people come up with great ideas on the job all the time. But when you start talking about how to execute that great idea, that's when the devil is in the weeds. The devil is in the details. And right now, there's a lot of details associated with that vaccine that make it very, very difficult to get out en masse to a lot of people. So I applaud Pfizer for doing the due diligence of creating an effective vaccine. However, when they got to the point where they realized they got to have this super freeze and then 2 doses and all that stuff, somebody should have said, is this going to be practical to be able to get out to 100 million people, basically? You have to get herd immunity. You look at it, you need about 60 to 70% of the population to be vaccinated against something. So now you're talking about in a country of 330 million, you're talking about what, 240 million?
We haven't even tested 60 to 70%.
Right. So that's the issue with the Pfizer vaccine. I still do applaud them.
In terms of that refrigeration, though, one good thing I will say is that Joe Biden did appoint someone who he says is going to take care of this, the Batman villain, Mr. Freeze. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
I know him, Victor Freeze. Right?
He said it. He said it.
You can check.
He will come in the room. All right, everybody, chill.
Got to chill the COVID medicines.
Like, are we gonna be administering the vaccine in freezers and in restaurant freezers? Like,
all I know is I've had a Slurpee and drink it too fast. I ain't trying to get no 30 degrees below zero shot twice.
Exactly.
That shit ain't happening. No. But you know what? So again, talking about the specifics of how it has to be stored, talking about the comeback 28 days later. This is how you get zombies, right?
You want zombies? This is how you get them.
And somebody finds and they're like, I'm gonna heat it up anyway. Oh, it's 35 degrees. I remember something about 30 degrees, but it's 100 degrees Celsius, and next thing you know, everybody dead. We walking around biting each other 28 days later. It's all right there. You hear it? It's all right there. And that's gonna be the real. See, I'm already ready. I don't know if y'all noticed this, but one, I got my green screen up so you don't know where I live. 2, I got all my clothes on. I got a sundress, some socks, some flip-flops, sandals, sneakers. I got on a t-shirt. I got on my sweatshirt over this. I got my scarf just in case. I'm ready to roll. Like at a moment's notice, take all my clothes with me like a homeless person. So I gotta go, just in case the zombies come, because you don't have time. You don't have time. You can't reason with a zombie,
Yeah.
I'm only 99% joking. Like,
Joy, I just want to say,
I don't know what the side effects is gonna be.
Joy, you did miss one joke. You mentioned a brain freeze, but if they inject it with you, it'd be a vein freeze. Oh,
that was terrible.
There's another hat throw.
But I'm pumped.
It's definitely and so we did a program last night on Black Doctor, hosted an event. We had some clinical trial specialists and we had an emergency room doctor to come on and talk about it. And we also had a business owner. And I think the business owner really makes that point about he solidified the point. He owned 3 restaurants there in Chicago. And so now he's talking about his business has been decimated because the city has another lockdown ordinance, so they can't have any in-dining serving. So it's only to go. He said they can do, unless you have a rooftop or outside area, or if you have like a barn, the garage doors where you can open them up. But he's like, it's 30 degrees in Chicago, right? And their winters are notoriously cold and notoriously long. So even if he had that in his restaurants, he couldn't do it because nobody's going to sit outside when it's 20 degrees. So he was like, it's basically decimated his business. He hopes a vaccine can help in terms of being able to offset that, where he could encourage his workers to possibly take the vaccine. So therefore, and then maybe people will feel comfortable so that they can get back out and we get enough people taking it. But again, we got to have, and one of the doctors said something that was brilliant last night. She said, a vaccine doesn't work. Vaccination is what works.
Yes.
So we're gonna have a whole truckload of vaccine. If people aren't taking it, is just a truckload of medicine, right? And so the most effective medicine is the most effective medicine is the one you take. And so we've got to be able to take the vaccine in order to be able to get back to some sense, some semblance of normalcy. Coronavirus is here. It's not going anywhere. Right?
It's going to forever be cold, flu, and corona season. But now here's another aftermath thing. Here's another fallout from the conditioning that we've had for the last 4 years. This country is more polarized than it's been since integration, right? And so you have people, because like even Vice President-elect Kamala Harris said it during the debate. If the doctors tell me that there's a vaccine, I will consider it. But if Trump is just saying it, I'm not taking it. And so that even for hook or crook, that was a line in the sand. I'm not listening to the other side. So imagine, if you will, Dr. Fauci and Biden's whole new Operation Push, like Rainbow Coalition group that he's got, because it's an extremely diverse group of doctors and specialists that he's pulled together. That's who we should be listening to. But there's going to be people who are going to say, I don't believe them because those are Biden's people. Trump's hydrochloroquine still works, and I'm not going to take their devil vaccine because it's this. I promise you, they're injecting us with the stamp of the devil. I can already write this for them. It's going to be on QAnon tomorrow. Right. And so they're going to resist it. And now you're going to have, again, half the population who refuses to get vaccinated. And we're not going to be able to reach herd immunity. Even if we could vaccinate 150 million people, we're not going to be able to reach it because we're not going to be able to reach everyone.
I wanted to pick your guys' brains on something because Ellis, you brought up the impact on business, right? And you were talking about, perhaps getting the vaccination for, restaurant workers, they could come in and feel safe. I think a lot of what's happened with the pushback, or people wanting to open up despite it being not safe yet, is because of the economic impact that's very real, on them right now. So I just because this has been something that's been floating around in my head since this thing started. The economic impact of all of these businesses closing is, can we even put a number on it? It's well within if we would have just given out, some type of like $6 billion stimulus from the start and just said, everybody stay home for a month, I don't think we'd be in this problem. And I think it would we
wouldn't. Chris, you're absolutely right. We would not be in this predicament. But the Republicans and that whole conservative contingent says they'd rather suffer this way instead of giving minorities money. And that's really what it boils down to. You can't convince me. You can't convince me any other way, because they will suffer themselves out of trying to spite Black, brown people, gays, anybody that's considered an other. They will do that, and they will vote against their own best interest, their own self-interest, in order to not let those groups get any type of relief or aid. And so in that, when they wrote the stimulus package, because I believe the Democratic version did have more money going to regular people, everyday people, they were like, no, most of that money went to business. The lion's share of that money went to business. $600 went to people that made below a certain threshold, which was, the very poverty line. That was enough to
I didn't even make that cut.
I didn't either. But, but that was a blessing for me, right? Because I'm in a situation where I didn't need that $600, especially if you're going to be taking it from my future taxes any goddamn way. It really wasn't it was $600 you were just loaning me. You weren't giving it from me. So it was like, that was a loan. That's ridiculous. But people don't read the fine print. They was like, I got $1,200. My family got $1,200, and that's great in the short term. But overall, look at your bills. Right. $1,200 going to get you through. And how long are we going to have to shut down? How long are we going to have to socially distance and wear masks and close businesses in order to get this virus level back down? And the rhetoric that came from the White House is why the numbers kept going back up. Dr. Fauci told you, when we get to flu season, the numbers are going to go up. He told you that. And the president said, no mask, get out there, go out there, get back open. And look what's happening. The numbers are reaching record numbers every day.
That $1,200 was a joke, man. It was a joke. My monthly bills exceed that every month. And listen, I'm not, I don't have a bunch of crazy bills. We're just talking, rent, a car,
insurance,
Great
those
insurance.
three right there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and I don't want to be dismissive of people that don't make that kind of money. So I'm really, I want to make sure that I'm being sensitive to. There's a lot of Americans that are below that line that needed that money, and so I do. I know we're saying a lot of things tongue in cheek and in jest, but I don't want to be insensitive to those people because there's a lot of people like that. But I think over the long term, that first stimulus package had a T. It was trillions of dollars that they earmarked, that they put in that stimulus package, and only 600 million actually went to real Americans. Everything else was earmarked as loans for businesses and monies to industries to keep them afloat. And that was a disservice to the American people that you claim that you are one of, that you stand in front of these rallies and say, hey, we're with you. The Democrats, they just use you, blah, 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 blah. But then you create a stimulus package and only 600 million of what was it, 3.2 trillion? Ended up $1 trillion, and only 600 million went to actual American people, families that needed that money in order to keep food on the table, keep lights on, keep a roof over their head, and all of those things. I think that was a complete disservice. And now the aftermath is coming because everybody's shutting back down, and they still haven't figured out how to get the second stimulus package going, which is going to put us further
over in Europe, in the countries where they have universal income, they just sitting at home chilling, singing out the window like because they ain't had to go nowhere, and they've managed to get a handle on it. Now, even some of the European countries are seeing another spike because we expected a second wave, but they're seeing another spike. They're not seeing a continual climb like we've seen, and so the numbers are there. If anyone who wants to research and look it up, all you got to do, pull up any other country as a percentage of population, and you will see that America is 3 to 4 times higher than any other developed country.
The number to think about are 4 and 20. We're 4% of the world's population, 20% of the COVID cases. That should be enough right there. 4 and 20. Yeah, you like that? 420?
I like that a lot.
No, I saw your Facebook post, buddy. Okay, you better unfriend me if you don't want to put the truth out there.
Oh, never that.
What were you about to say?
I was going to say, what about a rental and mortgage freeze? I think that would have been a absolutely wonderful move, and I still think going into what is by all experts looking to be a huge spike in a bad winter, it'd be nice if you say, hey, listen, if you have a business, you don't have to worry about paying that rent. If you own a house, listen, you ain't gonna get your house taken away. Everybody just chill out, and once things resume, just act like those 3-4 months never even happened. Just take them off the books. I don't understand why we don't do that.
I think that the overcapitalization and that worshiping at the altar of capitalism is really going to come back to bite us, because what you're saying to the conservative ear is socialism, right? That's all they heard. They didn't hear, hey, people are suffering. They didn't hear, we need to do this temporarily. What they heard was socialism, and they're not going for it, right? Even though they could benefit from it as well, they're not going for it, and they'll vote against that all day long. And so that's what we have to be careful about.
Even when FDR first put forward Social Security, at the very first time, people hated it. They hated him, and they called him a socialist. And this is terrible. This is not America, and you're the worst, and blah, blah, blah. Fast forward 50, 60 years. I wish you would try to take away Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security over and over again. This is, you can't touch my social, don't you touch my Medicare. But your grandparents didn't want you to have this because it was socialism. So people hear socialism and they go back to the Red Scare and the United Soviet Socialist Republic, which was
red lines and all that kind of stuff.
Communism at that, and not just straightforward. We have a lot of other corrupt socialist entities out there. We are a corrupt capitalist entity. Capitalism in and of itself is not bad. Nothing is innately bad. It's when you add corruption to it that it gets almost.
Black licorice is inherently bad.
Say what?
black licorice is inherently bad. That's one thing.
Well, to use a term, an addiction term, socialism is a trigger word, right? And that is for conservatives. When you say that, that's a trigger word, and so they stop listening at that point. And so it's like, now we can't. And because of the way how the president has changed the way discourse happens in the country, then we don't listen. I've had so many people won't even read articles, won't even read things that I've sent to them because they go, oh, that came from MSNBC. Oh, that came from blah, 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 blah. Oh, I don't like that guy. And they immediately say what he's saying is not true. Right. And so I always go back to them and say, look, you have just cut off intellectual thought and factual information because you don't like the person or you don't like the source. Right. Think about how that sounds and think about how detrimental that could be to your development by just saying, I have to agree, which you don't always have to agree with truth and facts. They just are what they are. Not only do I have to agree, but I have to like it in order for it to be truth and factual. And what's happening is a lot of non-truths, a lot of non-facts are being accepted and pushed as such because they're just opinions because people agree and they like it. And that's what we're going. That's why we've got Parler and MeWe and all these other crazy sites going on right now, because they're just pushing out stuff that people want to hear, affirmation over information.
The first time I heard the name Parler, the first thing I thought was, as soon as you log in, Colonel Mustard's gonna kill you with candlestick. It's a different spelling. I know. It's the French word to speak. I'm joking. Right. I'm just saying that for people. People are probably watching like, I don't know. I don't think any conservatives are watching this anyway. So
probably not. But you know what? You make a really good point. So one of my favorite quotes, I use this all the time in some of my training classes. Nathan Rusty said that prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance.
Yes.
That's exactly what you're talking about. I don't want to hear it. I don't care what they say. I don't believe you. I deny, rationalize any reason to put off and to discount the information you're trying to give because I don't want to change. I don't want to be better. I don't want to do this. That's how you end up with folks voting against their own best interest. It's not so much. Okay, so I'm going to do a weird reference. But if you remember, it was a terrible movie. What was it? The Shape of Water. It won all kind of Oscars, and it was garbage.
Yes,
hot garbage in the ocean. But one of the things
that she jerked off a fish.
Shut up.
Yes.
Yes, but shut up. So in that movie, one of the things that stuck with me, because I get my inspiration from a lot of different places, one of the things that stuck with me was that you had two warring governmental factions, one for like Russia, one for the United States, and I can't remember which faction it was, but they were ready to kill this weird fish dude that had all of this information about, regenerating limbs or whatever it was that he knew. They were ready to kill him. And they said, we don't care if we don't get the information from him as long as the other side doesn't get it either.
Wow. Yeah.
Their own growth, their own education, their own evolution, just to stop somebody else from getting it. And I see that every day in the discourse of American politics. I don't care if I can't have healthcare or universal income or a social safety net as long as I stop you from getting it. And that's where we are. And that's why we talk about having to heal. And I'm gonna say something else, a little controversial. When Trump won in 2016, I had a nervous breakdown. I know a lot of people that had issues. We freaked the hell out because I literally saw what has come to pass. And I knew 4 years is a long time to listen to what we've been listening to. It was going to forever, as it has, discourse in America. I saw this coming. Wasn't nothing I could do about it. It was over. But we had the little pussy hat protests in DC, even though 53% of white women voted for him, good, going out there and protest if you want to. We had people, pundits saying this is terrible, this is a travesty, electoral college needs to go. What we didn't have was any subgroups of Democrats plotting assassination attempts, plotting to overthrow the government, to start wars in the streets. And that's what I see on those sites, because me and a couple friends, we have some fake accounts, we go in there and mess with them. But on those parlay sites, they talk about, what are we going to do? We got to keep it quiet. They're never going to see it coming. This is it. This is what we've been waiting on. And when they say this is what we've been waiting on, this is the lost cause. all over again. The same group that has been keeping this kernel of this little flame alive since the Civil War has been waiting on their chance to resubjugate everyone except straight white men. And then they're close. And that's the dangerous part. So to me, when people say, well, you guys were mad in 2016 and now they're just mad and they'll get over it. No, they won't. They have no intention of getting over it. And it's not all Republicans. It's not even all Trump supporters, but it's enough critical mass of people that all have 5 and 6, 12 guns apiece and are willing to recruit. Just the same way you see the Taliban and ISIS recruiting through videos and websites, they are recruiting. The Proud Boys are recruiting right now to try and start something on American soil. And the problem is the people that they are recruiting look just like most Americans, good nephew, good boy, quiet next door, he ain't never done anything wrong. They're not going to be ready. White folks are not going to be ready for what the other white folks are doing. And so it behooves all the people of color to be on, not, I don't want to be on alert, be on standby, but just to understand what is happening in the background, you know?
Yeah. So you know what really terrifies me about what you're saying in regards to them not getting over it is the same thing happened in the Civil War. The other side never got over it. And what did they do? They taught the children, and then those children taught their children. And we have 2020 where people are still wearing Confederate flag shirts, waving Confederate flags. And I don't want to see Trump signs when I'm 90.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
The Daughters of the Confederacy?
United Daughters of the Confederacy.
United Daughters of the Confederacy, and they were the ones that put all those statues all over the South.
Right.
They lobbied.
The phrasing is heritage, not hate. That was them. The Lost Cause, the South Shall Rise Again, Dixieland, all of that was their marketing campaign. It is one of the best marketing campaigns of all time.
Pretty good.
And Jane Elliott. She said, "Give me 20 years and I can eradicate racism." And she said, "I'm going to do it through education."
Yes.
Because that's what it did. The Daughters of the Confederacy, they went in, they lobbied the school boards, they lobbied anybody they could to get those statues, and then they got the books to rewrite the history of the South and soften what was really going on, the treasonous behavior of the South. And that over time softened and reconstructed how everybody viewed the Civil War and the South, and it became the War of Northern Aggression. You know, all of those little kind of subtle things that gets into the psyche. As Black people, we're kind of already automatically fortified against it. If we had anybody in our family that told us the truth, so we kind of like got fortified against the foolishness. But for the everyday average white person, if they are not taught that in the classroom, if they don't understand the significant contributions made in this country by people of color and by women, then what happens is they get in that mindset that says they haven't done anything, so they should just be happy that we allow them to be here. And that's what's happening on those sites like Parler. And the scary thing about that is the Parler people, they're making money on it, they don't care. But what's happening is that paranoia, that anger, that violent tendency is feeding upon itself on those sites because there's that communication is not filtered. And so they can just continue to stew. And then somebody goes and says, we're going to do it for real, like the attempt on the Michigan governor. And so that's the real scary part about it. And that's the part that I'm really disappointed about when we're talking about the aftermath, and we can have a lot of fun, but the disappointment about it is I'm at odds. I'm going back and forth with people that I know and respect, but they refuse to see it. They just keep spouting these tropes and these things. You're like, what? And like they said, oh, when Trump got elected president, people were looting and burning Democratic cities. And I was like, could you name me one city that got looted and burned when Trump was? And then he said, and Obama was, and then what did he say? Obama was in bed with and cozying up to terrorists. Can you name one terrorist that President Obama cozied up to? And then I started spouting facts about what Trump hadn't done, and they disappeared. Because it's really, again, it's about affirmation over information. They don't want to hear that. They want to be emotionally connected to their own truth.
Yes.
And that's the issue.
And I think the real unfortunate thing is I think, the other side is completely the opposite. And let me explain what I mean. I voted for Obama twice. I cried like a baby when he was elected in 2008. I saw myself in him. I saw my son in him. It was a beautiful thing. I'm still pissed off that he didn't close Guantanamo Bay. So I think that, and you guys may disagree with me, other people may disagree with me, but I think it's important to not show this undying reverence and
right.
Just worshiping at the altar of a politician. They're human beings. So
Yes.
even if Donald Trump wasn't the psychopath that he is, I really wish that, Republicans would look at some of his policies and say, hey, you know what, this one, we could tweak this. That one, we could tweak this. Because trust me, Democrats are going to do the same thing to Biden. That's what they're going to do to Biden. They're going to, but that's a good thing. Like, I'm not complaining about it. We have to hold these guys accountable. And
Pelosi did it to Obama. Pelosi did it to Obama when he got into office. She was trying to run the presidency from, and that's why they lost all those seats at the midterm elections.
If Obama would have screwed up the country in his first 4 years, he didn't have my guaranteed vote.
Right.
He didn't. I mean, listen, I voted Democrat as long as I've been able to vote. And, that's up and down the ballot. I've never voted Republican. I might have gone for an independent, even though that's kind of throwing your vote away, but that's another thing. But again, we have to hold these politicians accountable. We have to hold them accountable.
That's the third head throw. That's the third head throw. Oh, Joy can attest to the fact that when we were doing the 3 Degrees talk show, we would grade Obama on a regular basis during that time, and we rarely.
We had a whole segment called "Thanks Obama for stuff he was mad about."
Yeah, and we really took him to task at times about some of his policies, and that's really how we should be getting back to it. We should not be looking at, but that's the environment that Trump created. He was the Sith Lord of the Republican Party. Those that my Star Wars said know what I'm talking about. It's either you are against me or you're with me. That's it. There's no in between. There's no, hey, I can critique you and still, and we'd still be okay. No, he was like, if you critiqued him, he did everything he could to destroy you, and he created an environment of yes men. And that's the whole, businessman philosophy. Which good businesses don't do that, but let's just say there are some businesses that do that create that whole yes man mentality. He created it in Washington and really became retaliatory on the people that spoke out against him, and that became very, very toxic.
So
all politics.
Now you're back in my territory. So when I talk to different companies, surrounding yourself with loyal people is never going to be as good as surrounding yourself that have the good of the company at heart.
Yes.
And so the good of the company may not always be what you want. They may even tell you to your face you're wrong. They may bring someone else and say, hey, this guy's got a great idea. But if you want the company to succeed, you listen to all input, and you have a team of people around you who at least some subset of them don't agree with you in order to make sure you make the best decision for the company. But if you surround yourself with people that pump you up and say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, whatever, and they never disagree with you, half of them are plotting against you anyway, because they know you're crazy and they're just biding their time. And the other half are yes men or yes women. They have no idea. And you miss the trends, the evolutions, the innovation, because y'all are busy circle jerking is the best way I can put it. But I mean, that's what ends up happening.
She was circle jerking him, right?
Exactly. So while this is going around, the world is going to hell. We got to stop, Chris.
Okay.
Pull that back.
But, that's on me. That's on me.
But I'm the one that said it, so that's really on me. But my point is, you look at the way the Democratic Party is right now. They get criticized for being splintered, and one half doesn't like the other half, and everybody has this idea of what they want. You have the Green New Deal people. You have the Democratic Socialists, you have the Libertarians, a few of them are in there too. That is how it should be. If we get away from a two-party system and wipe out, unfortunately, I would say the Republican Party at the moment, because they are such loyalists, they vote personality. It's a cult of personality on that side from where I'm standing. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. But
no, you're not. You're not.
And come to a group where there is no cohesion, there is no, you got a guaranteed vote because you put a blue banner out. Now who do the super PACs donate to? There is no DNC, there is no RNC. It's just people. You got to read somebody's manifesto. You got to read their program, read their plan, and you can have 10 different people all voting, all being independents, running for president. You don't know who's going to win. So now you really have to come and court votes. that could be a truly democratic system. You know, it could be chaos, but I would prefer that over the chaos of this two-party almost war that we seem to be on the verge on every time we have an election.
One thing that I never understood is why we have the two major parties, but we do have minor parties. We have the Green Party.
We have
Libertarians. I've never understood.
And we got the birthday party. You forgot about Kanye's birthday
Shut
party.
up. The birthday party will never get traction ever. We
birthday
don't
party got
about that.
60,000 votes.
I am emotionally committed to being ignorant about the birthday party. Okay.
No, but
The puppy party. You got the puppy party too.
But I never understood why the other two parties were never allowed on a debate stage. Now, I'm not a libertarian, far from it. Okay. But why don't we listen to what they have to say? I mean, that's the answer, Joy. I know, but like, it shouldn't be.
Right. You know what? If we really wanted to change social discourse and elections at the highest office, highest levels, you make equal airtime. Make that part of the socialist package. You know what? All people running for president get equal airtime, and then as we vote, it'll be like Dancing with the Stars or The Voice. You vote for 16, then you vote for 8, then you vote for 4, and then you get to the final 4 and one of them wins. You know, we're already used to it, right? We know how to vote for American Idol. So let's do it that way. But they all get equal airtime until they get voted out. You know, right. That's my new plan. I'm speaking it into being. We have.
So here's a quick anecdote about the type of person that Trump is. So I don't know. It's a 30 for 30. So you can look this up on ESPN if you want to. They did a 30 for 30 on the USFL. Y'all remember that? Years ago, USFL. Yep. And he was one of the owners. That's how he met Herschel Walker, and he made Herschel Walker a millionaire. He was the owner of the Generals,
right? Was it the Generals?
New Jersey Generals. He owned the New Jersey Generals. He had it out for the NFL because they said no to him trying to own an NFL team. So out of spite, he pushed hard. They worked hard. They got the USFL to be a viable product, right? They played in the spring. They didn't compete with the NFL, but they had a viable product, and they were pulling away good players from the NFL, like Herschel Walker, like Steve Young. There was a number of players that chose to go to USFL over the NFL. He was winning, but that spite drove him to force the other owners to try to move and play in the fall. And he tried to break up the NFL and challenge their nonprofit status and all this other stuff. Those NFL owners got together, crushed him. He won his lawsuit. He got $1 as his settlement for the lawsuit. And the USFL disbanded and fell apart because they could not compete with the NFL because they had all of the contracts and stuff and the television contracts for the fall. They should have stayed in the spring, but his spite and his ego drove that entire organization into the ground. What he's doing right now in this country is his spite and his ego. He is willing to splinter. And one of my friends put it perfectly. She used the story of the mothers that were competing in the Bible. They were both competing for the baby, and they split the baby. And the person that wants to say, I'd rather see the baby live somewhere else than be dead. He's not that person. He's the person that would say, let's
I'm gonna get this leg in this arm.
I'm gonna take this because
that's actually really true.
Right, and that's
a really good comparison for real.
It was. I was like, that was phenomenal. Like it was right on point. And like, this is the guy. That's the guy. And so like right now, what he's contemplating right now is what he's doing in the Pentagon, his tweets, the maneuvers he's making. He's got his attorney general out there acting a fool, really acting as his personal attorney and not the attorney for the United States of America. And he's doing all of these things. He's keeping his base riled up. And he's willing to split the country instead of taking a step back and saying, hey, it's the will of the people. I should have done a better job, blah, 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 blah. That requires some really kind of self-reflection and some insight, which he has zero of.
One final thing before we get into our final thoughts, because we're running low on time. So Jermaine Taylor from Soapbox Sunday on Instagram. Jermaine is in the chat room, and he said that he was wondering, like, do you don't think we have the numbers? Like talking about the phenomenon of the browning of the United States. The fact that at this time, if my numbers are right, and don't quote me on this, but I know I'm close. Children who are 10 years old and younger are majority people of color. And so that's the browning of America. And so in 8 years, in 2 more cycles, they're going to be voting. You know, 3 more cycles, they're going to be the base of corporate America. So if you don't know how to get on with people of color, your days are literally numbered. We don't have the numbers right now to do that, but we will. We absolutely will. And this, honestly, I'm going to say something real crazy. This is why they had miscegenation laws in the beginning. This is why, of all the things that have happened with the Supreme Court, the Loving case was probably the start of their decline. Because once you start having children who are of mixed race and one race welcomes, generally speaking, I'm not talking about all the time because there have been
they did it to themselves though, Joy. They did it to themselves. The one-drop laws and all those other things.
Them little mixed race kids got pushed to what they would consider the lower rung. And you know, we may talk about light skin, bright skin, blah blah blah, but you still could come home. You still could come to the cookout. We're gonna clown you, but you can still come. But so that issue of always of trying to maintain purity, any race in the history of races that has tried to maintain purity has died out, either from inbreeding or from lack of diversity in their genetic pools as with the inbreeding and everything, or from conquering because they became so small. You know, so yeah, the writing is on the wall for that. We will have those numbers one day. It depends though on if we can coalesce as people of color, because otherwise you have the Latin American bloc and Hispanic bloc. Like you got a lot of different blocks within the Latinx community. You got Black versus African American, Jamaican born, Haitian. You got all this. You have LGBTQIA plus. You know, everybody, because faction and splinter. And now it's looking like what's the movie? The Warriors. Everybody got their own little gang running around New York. It could be that, you know, Warriors.
Yeah, you know, ultimately, I think young people who didn't listen to their parents and got on the internet and got on TikTok and really figured out that what was happening was crazy. You know, like my daughters and her friends, and they were all voting Biden. They were all voting Democratic, and some of them had very conservative parents and all that. And so, but they saw from their own eyes and made their own decision. I think the young people, young white Americans in particular, came out and voted for Biden, and that helped swing that. There are those, you know, to your point earlier, Chris, I think where we say it's close is because a lot of those votes, those 74, 75 million votes that voted for Biden, a lot of those votes are coming from significant Democratic centers, like you know, California, New York, Chicago. And so the Atlanta was so heavy, we were able to pull Georgia blue. But when you go outside, but if you look at the counties when you look at the map of Georgia, it was Atlanta, a little bit of Macon,
Columbus, Savannah.
Columbus, yeah, pockets of blue, but there was just enough in the Atlanta metro area with the LGBTQIA community, a large Black population here and a large kind of Democratic population that pulled the rest of the state kicking and screaming along with them. And so that's where I do have some concerns. I think ultimately, and my last statement for today is, ultimately my concern is really we've got to do, and yeah, it's not going to be overnight where the language and the temperature of the nation is going to come down, but that is going to be my mantra from now until till January 20th and even beyond, is that we've got to get back to civil discourse with each other. We could disagree without me having to hate you. We could disagree without me having to curse everything about you and you know, unfriend you and all of these different things. We're going to so far extremes because we're following his lead, and that's the way he's been behaving. And the president sets the tone of the country. I said that 4 years ago, and it's proven to be true. I'm looking at all those Facebook reminders that I wrote, and I kept saying, I hope he proves me wrong, but I don't see anything in his personality that says he's going to be anything different than the way he is. And I was absolutely right on that. So I'm patting myself on the back on that one. But seriously, we do have to simmer down some of the temperature in what's going on in this country.
Trying to show
wow. Was that a mic drop? I said, don't
sounds like it. No. There we go.
Yeah.
Drop. Dean, don't drop your shirt. You don't have. I mean, I called you Dean Ellis. Don't.
Gonna pull titties out. Don't need to pull titties.
No.
But no. Seriously,
I almost lost y'all for a minute.
watch what's going on in the court cases. Stop looking at social media. Stop watching, opinionated news shows or whatever you're watching is going on. Watch what's going on in court. And specifically what was happening in Pennsylvania is none of his attorneys, they're yelling fraud all over TV, wherever they can. He's typing fraud all over social media. But what happened in court was when the judge asked them point blank, are you alleging fraud? They took a step back and said, no, there's some irregularities. About 582 ballots. I want y'all to be very, very clear on that. He's losing by over 160,000. They were in court about 582 ballots. And so what's happening in court is not what's happening in public opinion. It's not what's happening on Parler. It's not what's happening in their circles. And they don't get it. And I keep saying, watch what's happening in court. Read the transcript. It's public record. Read the transcript of what's happening in court. They're not saying fraud at all because they understand it's not fraud. What they want to do is continue to put out to their base that this election was stolen from Donald Trump, and they are eating it hook, line, and sinker.
That's another example of cognitive dissonance because you can't tell specifically Black and brown people the justice system works. Let the courts handle it. The court system is great. Blah blah blah. Every time we say some Black person needs justice in the court system, well, we got to let the system work for how it works. And now the courts are like, yeah, we're throwing this case out. The courts are rigged. First of all, let's remember that McConnell blocked like 120 appointments that Obama tried to put in before he was out of office. So that's 120 that they started with in the bank when Trump was elected. He filled all those spots. So it's an extremely conservative higher or appellate court system. So
but ain't no bullshit when they smell it.
It be your own people, right? It's your own people telling you that this ain't gonna work. Just like Secretary of State here in Georgia, that's y'all people. Y'all put him in. Now you gonna tell me that he's a fraud too? Everybody can't be a fraud. Who? We didn't pick him. Y'all picked him. That's your boy. Get your boy. Right?
Go get him.
I know Kemp mad as hell right now though. Oh, I know he hot.
Kemp was somewhere spitting tax like exorcism.
Oh, he hot right now. He like, oh, and Buddy is going rogue. Like he's enjoying that. Like he's like talking trash, and I'm like, hey.
Oh, you want me to leave? Get out of here. I ain't leaving.
Man. I'm not.
You know who I'm loving though? Chris Cuomo is having the time of his life.
Oh, he was having a ball.
Every time they on this show, it's the best. Oh, my phone died. It's the absolute
Cuomo, Jake Tapper's having a great time. And even if you notice, even on Fox News, they have changed their tone when they're cutting off, and they're like, wait a minute, accept it and move on. They're probably gonna give Biden hell for 4 years. They're gonna
absolutely. That's the way they give most Democratic presidents hell, and that's fine.
Like they talk about Obama's tan suit and his lapel pin, and they talk about everything, but they are going to respect the results of this election, and that's the part I give them respect.
And because of that Parler crowd is already jumping ship off of Fox News.
Oh yeah.
They're going
Fox
to OAN.
Now fake news.
What's the other one? There's OAN, and then there's another Newsmax, because I saw one of my white friends put that. Thank God for Newsmax.
One of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Yes, it's crazy. I mean, even
BET look like PBS.
Viacom sapped all the teeth. Viacom took all the teeth out of
PBS. Right. What is really going on? And the fact that people are believing this, like I was watching a clip from The Daily Show, and they were talking about QAnon and et cetera. And they interviewed a woman who smiled into the camera with full sincerity and said she believed that JFK Jr., I think one of the Kennedys that has been dead, is still alive and standing behind Trump at all his rallies. She believes that, but she doesn't believe that mail-in voting is safe. And she was dead serious.
If you've been watching any of these Next Gen cult documentaries, you can understand. I watched the documentary on Jim Jones. The cult, the mentality of the people that joined the cult don't understand. It's a slow seduction process.
Yes.
That by the time they get so deep into it, they're drinking cyanide-laced Kool-Aid because they feel like that's the best way to go. than to get back to real world and real life.
Right.
They moved to a foreign country in order to stay. Remember, so that's how strong these cults were. Those women in Nexium were getting brands on their bodies. They were calling people master. They were doing all kind of crazy stuff.
Almost every Q I know got a brand on his body. So,
but that's not a cult. That's not a cult. That's not a cult.
But you know, to your point about the cult, you don't have to go as far as a cult.
Cult is, shut up now.
I'm just saying, I see a lot of brands. I don't say nothing about
and look, if fraternities are a cult, then I'm a bad member because sometimes I don't even go to meetings.
Bro, if I had $1 for every time I skipped out on a meeting early, I have several $100.
I'm a bad cult member. I'm bad.
No, I'm a flaky cult member if that's the case. But you don't even have to go as far as cults. You can go into any abusive relationship where women, you know, especially with a narcissist, you know, he tells you everything you want to hear. He makes you believe everything he says, he or she, it could go either way. And then that person starts to blame you for all of their problems. And if you're mad at them, look at what, you know, you're mad at them, y'all start fighting. Look at what you've made me do. Look at what you've done to us. I would be happy if it weren't for you and everything. They beat you down into believing that you need to be better. Or in this case, between Trump and the Republicans and the rest of us, somebody else. It's always somebody else's fault, right? And I saw something so real the other day, and it was just somebody posting on Twitter, but she made a point. She goes, if you have never broken up with a narcissist, you have no idea what we're about to be in for. It's about to be 70-something days of lies, blame, regret, finger pointing, like all of that. And so that's where we are. We have broken up with the worst ex ever. And he gonna be outside our window calling us a whore. Like that's about to be where we are. You know,
I want Trump outside my window with the boombox over his head,
like say anything.
I get some love sometimes. Now, it's gonna be like this. Love, I get so lost sometimes.
Now, you know what he's gonna be playing outside your window? Loyalty by Rihanna and your
loyalty.
That's what he wants. That's what he. You know that should have been his walk-up music.
You know what I'm gonna play when I turn it on back outside? You about to lose your job. Get this dance. You about to lose your job because Chris.
That was the best police officer ever. That was the best police officer ever because he just stood there. He was cold with it. He was cold.
You gotta keep your eye on Chris. He be doing stuff in that top corner.
I'm trying not to look up there. I'm gonna have to put my hand there.
Anything weird going on in this top corner, okay? Everything is just completely normal and just, you know, everything's fine. Nothing's weird. Nothing, you know, nothing out of the ordinary.
I'm done. Just a puppet just popped up, just like.
Where did he get the puppet though?
He got the Ron Jeremy puppet with the police officer.
That is a Ron Jeremy puppet. Don't tell him it's a Ron Jeremy puppet. That's a whole nother. You didn't open up a whole nother genre for him. Chris, tell us about the puppet, please. What is going on?
Well, I mean, you know, times are tough, and I had this cop that needed a place to stay, so he pays me rent, and you know, it's just kind of a nice arranged living situation. My girlfriend's cool with it, you know, and it's fine.
Oh, hey, that was a homoerotic. Is that what they call it?
Hey man, it's your house. Do what you want.
I'm just. When did the show get off the rails? And then Ron Jeremy puppet popped in the bitch and he started.
You know what? Chris makes a good point. The show went off the rails the moment we invited him on.
Yeah, you're right.
I believe he is right. But you know what? I have fun looking up and just going, Chris, like, what are you doing? You never know. You never know.
He's having a great time. It's like he's doing his own thing. It's like, which of these kids is
one of these kids has fun. A puppet. So on that note, I want to wrap up. So Chris, the ghost of Chris Taliaferro, I want to thank you for being on the show today and for adding to our repartee going back and forth.
You're very welcome.
Helping us to keep it light, because sometimes, especially in the last few weeks, we have gotten so serious and it's been so hard to maintain some levity that we took a week off last week. Like I ain't got it in me. So thank you for injecting us That's not the word I want to use with you.
Hey,
Thank you for bringing some.
my lady's watching this. Be careful now. Hold on now.
Thank you for bringing some levity to the show. Tell people where they can find you on all your social media.
Well, so I have a podcast. It's called Things You Don't See Every Day with Chris Taliaferro. You can find that show on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. And you can also find it on anchor.fm. You can also follow that podcast on social media. We're the same on Facebook and on Instagram. It's at Things You Don't See Podcast. Again, that's at Things You Don't See Podcast. And we're also on YouTube. Just type Things You Don't See Every Day with Chris Taliaferro in the search bar. We pop right up.
Okay.
Like puppets popping up on shows. You don't see that every day.
Podcast, so no one can see what the puppets are doing. Believe me.
Why are you like this?
I was born this way. I don't know what to say. And when I see sometimes go gay, bars.
But we love it.
Did you just say bars? Okay, you know what?
He barred his own self. Like he was like, your own lyrics.
Oh, surprise! Oh.
If I can't hype myself up, who's gonna do it?
That's a good point. You know, sometimes, we had this talk last week, or a couple weeks ago. Sometimes you got to encourage yourself.
Sometimes you got to encourage yourself.
But
look,
I think
that should be our walkout music. Encourage yourself. But the gospel song.
Yes, but I got the gospel that because I'm about as much of a cult follower at church as I am a sorority meeting. So
how about that? Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm bad on cults. I'm bad on
all of
that. Just like I'm too cynical. I think that's what I realized. Like I'm way too cynical about stuff, and I think even with religion, I go so far, and I'm a believer and I'm a Christian, but some of that stuff that all those things that they try to make you do.
So
I actually read the Bible, so I like people try to tell me stuff. I'm like, that's not in the Bible.
That's not in the Bible. Cleanliness next to godliness is not in the Bible.
Yes, I'm like,
y'all made that
a Bible verse? Like, how did that become a Bible verse? Or then I extend the Bible verse all the way out when they try to tell you that little piece snippet of it, and I extend it all the way out. It's like, you're really kind of taking that out of context? And then they kind of look at you, that inquisitive look. I'm like, you ain't read it, did you?
You didn't read it, did you? Right. Oh, I remember I got into it with my mom one time because she was mad because she found out some stuff that I had done. And so she took me to church, and she was like, she showed me the verse, honor thy mother and father. And I went down like 3 more verses. Provoke not your child to wrath. It was
exactly.
Very quiet
both ways. Oh my God.
I was doing mic drops in high school. Boom, now I read the Bible. But anyway.
I tell you, that was the best thing. That was the best thing. I tell everybody, I was like, that's the best thing I ever did. Because I actually, and you can get the app on your phone and just do you could do it in like a 20-day plan. Just read it, get it in the morning, do it in your meditation time. And then even if you're not a Christian, just getting the context of Christianity, like it just being able to get that understanding of what is fueling a lot of what's happening. And then you can see the hypocrisy that's happening, especially with white evangelicals, and how you're like, wait a minute, guns and God and all that doesn't go together.
God didn't say nothing about the Second Amendment. God said, help the poor.
Yes, he said,
Jesus said, help the poor. Jesus said the money changers are a mess and flip the tables. That would be us. So all of this that we are worshiping, prosperity and prosperity preaching, all that stuff that we're doing is not godly. And you can't just only focus on abortion. There's so much more.
There are over 2,000 verses.
If you want to be real, I'm going to get real graphic with y'all. If you want to be real, that whole thing that they talk about abortion being against the Bible is about ejaculating on the floor. So that's on y'all. Stop jerking it and into a sock. That's what was an abomination. He said nothing about abortion. He said no jerking it and wasting it. So don't be wasting it. Don't put it on the floor. Now let me see a law against that. Let me see a law against blowjobs, since sodomy is included.
And the Bible verse about homosexuality is really about they were rebelling against the Greeks. They were rebelling against the Greeks because the men were raping the boys to show them how to have sex. So a lot of that was going on. And so the Bible said men should not lay with their sons. And so that has surely, that they've moved that forward and said, oh, that's same sex. So same sex people can't lay down with each other.
But again, as is very common in today's society, is to equate pedophilia and homosexuality is two completely different things.
Two different
things.
things.
All the way back to what you're talking about. You know what? That's a whole nother show. We ain't getting into
It is.
But we should do a show on religion. I think that would be worthwhile.
I think it would be, and we could have a scholar or two come on and really kind of talk about it. Because I think people really need to understand you cannot let man, because that's what's standing in the pastor's pulpit. That's a man lead you to, if you believe, you can't have a man lead you to your salvation. That the one
man to keep cheating on his wife.
But you can't have that man that's not Christ lead you to salvation, because he's giving you his interpretation. He's giving you how he sees and how he's read it, and so he may be. And we give too much power to those men instead of finding our own understanding. And the Bible does say you're supposed to pray for discernment. That's really the spiritual gift you should be asking for.
Right.
Is discernment, not anything else.
But don't be praying for his new Benz. But anyway,
how about that?
It's me being cynical again. Y'all, we're gonna get out of here. I've enjoyed today. So Chris, thank you again for helping us.
Thank you guys so much. This
level
is
up and lighten up a little bit. You're the best.
The ghost of Chris Pharaoh,
our family out here.
And his puppet, that's.
Don't bring that.
That's an image I'll never get out of my head.
You saw me the meme, right? You're like,
that puppet.
You were like, oh no, like don't do it again.
Don't bring that puppet back.
Don't stay on the floor. I promise. I promise.
Okay.
That's a different puppet.
Oh my God. Please. I believe it. I'm done. We'll see y'all next week. Religion show next week. We'll talk to y'all. I'm here in this conversation.
So you're a philosopher? Yes.
This is Thoughts and Moments. Hey, it's your boy Silly Thoughts, the Prince of Petty.
And I'm Joy, also known as Joyride. I provide the moments to make your life better.
We're here weekly to provide the latest news, trending topics, and edutainment.
We will engage, entertain, and inform, but we keep it real and we keep it fun.
So whether you're riding in these streets or podcast surfing with your peeps, this